Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers lashes out at the Reserve Bank for the way it views the economy. Australia joins the US, Canada and the Philippines to undertake naval exercises sure to irritate Beijing, and the growing industry of dog perfumes. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Thursday, the 8th of August, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and dog perfumes, Sean Aylmer?
I could see your face. You were struggling to hold it together there, Michael, but you did very well. Yes, It's a perfume too, really, not perfume, perfume.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not cultured enough to talk about dog scents. We will be getting to that one later, Sean. It's a cracker of a story, isn't it? A fair bit to get through first, though. The main story this morning, the Federal Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has taken on the Reserve Bank about its assessment that big spending by governments is prolonging inflation.
Following the central bank's board meeting this week, its decision to not move on interest rates because inflation is too high, and comments from the Governor Michelle Bullock about there being too much excess demand in the economy, Dr. Chalmers yesterday came out firing. Basically, he said the central bank was wrong. He told ABC Radio, "I think it's hard to sustain an argument that the economy is running too hot or that people have too much spare cash, given all of the data and all of the feedback that we get, which shows that's not the case." Dr. Chalmers said he didn't accept the argument that government spending is fueling inflation. He argued that the government's policies were pushing down the cost of living and budget spending wasn't the primary determinant of prices in the economy. Certainly, federal energy rebates will push down the headline inflation figure this financial year, but the Reserve Bank made it very clear this week that the effect is temporary and not part of its interest rate deliberations. Also, the Reserve Bank updated its forecast. It shows a significant jump in public demand this year, that is government spending this year, which if it occurs will definitely increase inflationary pressures. Now, the government is very tentative about this one because remember, with all those stage 3 tax cuts, there was all the talk about, are you adding to inflation? Same deal when the budget came out. Looks like the Reserve Bank thinks the federal government is adding to inflation.
Yeah, it's been an extraordinary couple of days. What's the wash-up from the interest rate decision on Tuesday?
Well, the markets still think there's a chance that rates will be cut later this year. As Lucy Ellis, the chief economist at Westpac, told us in yesterday's interview, she thought they'd be going in November this year, though what happened on Tuesday has really made her rethink where she's going. We actually got a great insight into the central bank's thinking yesterday from its chief economist, Sarah Hunter, who appeared before Parliament. She explained that there's less capacity in the economy to produce stuff, and along with higher demand, just means will take a bit longer to get control of inflation. The talk about aggregate demand and supply on Tuesday by the Reserve Bank is what has attracted most attention from market economists. While Dr. Hunter was reasonably sanguine about financial markets and all the volatility that's going on, she said that the Reserve Bank didn't take much notice of that. She also added that the Reserve Bank's base case is not for a recession in the US, which would be good for the local economy.
Sean, great response yesterday to the Fear and Greed weekly newsletter where you shared your view of the Reserve Bank's decision. And we also included in that a link to, as well, Lucy Ellis's interview from yesterday as well.
Michael, you're being modest here because we looked at the analytics this morning, and in the newsletter yesterday, there's also a link to an exploding whale.
Yep.
Which is Michael's all-time favourite video. Is it late 60s, early 70s? I'm not sure.
1970, thereabouts. And,
1970?
Yeah. And it is just an absolute classic. And really, that was my sole contribution to the weekly newsletter. You get all of the kind of the business and economic analysis and everything from Sean Aylmer. From Michael Thompson.
The exploding whale. Guess what the highest click-through was?
It'd be the whale, wouldn't it, Sean?
It certainly was.
It's just
well, I watched it a couple of times.
Yeah, it's vindication. You know what that is? Everyone wants to see more of
exploding whales.
Anyway, if you haven't signed up for the Fear and Greed newsletter, do so today. Head along to fearandgreed.com.au, and I'll have to dig up something else special for next week. I think I've set a precedent here, Sean. Back on track. Local markets. How did they go yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.3% to 7,700 points, having started the day lower. 9 of the 11 sectors on the benchmark index ended higher, led by the real estate investment trusts. The two sectors that ended lower were the two biggest, financials and materials. Among the large caps, the banks were mixed, with Commonwealth Bank and ANZ up, while National Australia Bank and Westpac were lower. CSL had a good day, rising nearly 1%, as did Telstra. It was up 1.2%. Woodside closed 1.5% higher. Wasn't so good for the big three miners as iron ore prices fell. Fortescue Metals Group and Rio both closed down more than 1%, while BHP was off 0.5%. A notable poor performer was James Hardie, which dropped more than 2%, paring back gains made in recent sessions. In corporate news, Neuren Pharmaceuticals put itself into a trading halt yesterday ahead of downgrading its earnings outlook on the back of weaker sales from American partner Arcadia. Neuren's share price is off more than 30% this year, having more than doubled in the final 6 weeks of 2023.
And what's happening in international markets?
Japan continues to be the most interesting financial market in the region. Yesterday, its central bank, the Bank of Japan, said it won't raise its policy interest rate when financial and capital markets are unstable. People like that. It sent the Nikkei, that's a local share market, higher, and the yen also appreciated. The Nikkei is now trading around the level it was at the beginning of the week, having at one point a couple of days ago dropped by as much as 13%. Otherwise, I suppose things are volatile in equity markets, but not quite as jumpy as earlier in the week. Oil prices are trending higher, gold's trending lower. The Aussie dollar's up about 0.5 cent against the greenback to 65.5 US cents. And cryptos are off their lows, with Bitcoin back almost to 57,000 US dollars a unit.
And Sean, after the show, you have an interesting interview coming up with Nehemiah Richardson, who is the CEO of Pengana Credit.
I learned a lot in this interview. Now, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, but Nehemiah helped me out here. So Pengana are working with Mercer, and they've launched a listed investment trust which invests in global private credit. I get private credit. What I didn't get is that global private credit, so private credit in the US and Europe, is very different to private credit in Australia. And therefore, as an investor, it means it gives you more options. And the point a lot of this is to do with regulation, and because regulatory requirements are slightly different, it means when you're investing in private credit offshore, you end up with many, many more options. So it's just a great chat to Nehemiah, who takes me through all that.
Yeah, it sure is. And Pengana Credit are great supporters of Fear and Greed. Sean, we have quite a bit to get to, including the story that we are all looking forward to about dog perfume. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Australia will take part in a joint military exercise in the South China Sea alongside the United States, Canada and the Philippines in a move sure to irritate Beijing.
A joint statement by military leaders of the four nations said naval and air force units were determined to demonstrate our collective commitment to strengthen regional and international cooperation in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. The combined armed forces will conduct the exercise within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone next week. Now, in the statement, the leaders of the nation said the activity will be conducted in a manner that is consistent with international law and with due regard to the safety of navigation and the rights and interests of other states. Not hard to see who they're pointing at in this one. China and the Philippines in particular have been at loggerheads over the region in recent months. The fact that Canada, the US and Australia are joining with the Philippines just demonstrates that the four are trying to show a united front against Beijing.
Australia has issued travel advisory notices warning tourists of the risk to their safety from anti-immigration protests and riots in the UK.
Yes, after last weekend's violence in the country in which rioters attacked hotels used to house asylum seekers, Australia updated its travel warning to the UK. It now says avoid areas where protests are occurring due to the potential for disruption and violence. The United Arab Emirates, Nigeria, Malaysia, Indonesia, amongst others, have also told their citizens to be on high alert. The violence has affected towns and city centres across the country, including tourist destinations like Manchester and Liverpool. Now, the Australian government has also changed its travel advice for Bangladesh to do not travel, with the Foreign Ministry saying the situation is volatile. It comes as the president of Bangladesh dissolved the country's parliament following an ultimatum issued by student protests, which forced the resignation of the Prime Minister earlier in the week.
Sean, childcare remains the most common reason why women who want a job can't start quickly, while for men it's long-term health or disability.
The Bureau of Statistics released data yesterday that shows 1.3 million people aged between 18 and 75 without a paid job want one. Now, there are 2.1 million people without a job who don't want one, and another 3.4 million retired or permanently unable to work. In total, there are about 19 million Australians in that age bracket. That's at the end of March. 73% have a job or are about to start one. The ABS also put out figures showing the cost of living increases totaled around 1.3% during the June quarter. Now, it was the first quarter since 2010 where the increase in cost of living for all household types was higher than the increase in inflation. Insurance and financial services, which includes mortgage interest charges, along with food and non-alcoholic beverages, were the main contributors across all household types to the higher living costs.
Workers in rogue Rams financial franchises paid and took illicit kickbacks and faked tax returns and company statements in the years leading up to their termination, Westpac alleges in response to a class action threat hanging over the bank. This is fascinating.
Yeah, Westpac said it would effectively shut down the 33-year-old Rams brand this week amid an Australian Securities and Investments Commission probe into the business covering the conduct of franchisees the franchisees have since taken the bank to court. Now, the 16 franchisees alleged the bank improperly terminated their licenses. However, in documents filed to the federal court and obtained by the Australian Financial Review, Westpac said it found evidence of widespread misconduct. Now, away from the court case, Rams will no longer accept new customers, while existing ones can still access services through its app, website and call centres, with its $31.8 billion loan book absorbed into Westpac's mortgage portfolio.
Now, this next story, Sean, I don't know what to make of this. An employee of a warehouse storing a veritable treasure trove, Sean, of unreleased Bluey-themed coins has been charged with stealing $600,000 worth of the currency from the back of a truck.
Last month, police were told 63,000 unreleased $1 coins featuring the popular Australian cartoon character, your favourite, Michael. Apparently they were taken from a storage facility in Sydney's west, according to a story in the Sydney Morning Herald. Strike Force Bandit was formed to investigate the alleged theft. Do you know why it was called Strike Force Bandit, Michael?
Oh, well done. That is fantastic. That is creative naming by the police because, of course, Bandit is the name of Bluey's dad in the TV show.
That's right. The $1 buck coins, that's what they like, the number one, the $1 buck coins were produced by the Australian Mint in a limited edition and feature 6-year-old blue heeler Bluey holding a balloon on the front and King Charles on the back. I wonder whether King Charles has watched Bluey, maybe with the grandkids.
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
I don't think there's many people on the planet that have grandkids that have not seen Bluey.
Please, you added that last bit. Last week,
I thought I better just save you there.
Last week, police officers raided a property where they found 189 of the missing coins. The man in possession of the coins was a legitimate coin collector who had innocently obtained them, police said, but it was the breakthrough needed to nab the Bluey $1 buck thief.
That's a great story.
That's the story for you.
It's very likely it's going to appear in the weekend edition when we do this one, Sean. Turning to international news, and Kamala Harris yesterday introduced Tim Walz, her running mate in the race for the White House, saying that the Minnesota governor was a champion of dearly held freedoms that Donald Trump was plotting to take away.
Her comments in front of thousands of cheering supporters in Philadelphia came after polls showed the vice president moving slightly ahead of her Republican rival in some national and crucial battleground state polling averages. Harris selected Walz, a former football coach and National Guardsman, over the governor of Pennsylvania and also over an Arizona senator. Walz is a mainstream Democrat from the Midwest who appeals to both the progressive and moderate wings of the party. Of course, he was immediately attacked by the opposition. Donald Trump and Republicans called him a radical leftist. Harris and Walz are now pitching themselves as defenders of personal freedoms, including abortion rights and safety from gun violence, according to the Financial Times.
Sean, Hamas has chosen one of the architects of the deadly October 7 attacks on Israel to lead the militant group's political wing as fighting continues in the Gaza Strip.
Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza since 2017, has long been considered a planner of Hamas's military strategy, and now he will replace Ismail Haniyeh, the group's previous political leader, who was killed in an explosion in Iran last week that's been widely attributed to Israel. A hardline figure born in Gaza, Mr. Sinwar, who's 61, is a prime target for Israeli forces. He's widely believed to be hiding out in tunnels underneath the enclave to avoid Israeli attack. Now, his selection to lead the group's political office comes as the region braces for Iran and its proxies, including Hamas, Hezbollah in London, and the Houthis in Yemen, to strike Israel in response to the killings last week of Mr. Haniyeh and a senior Hezbollah commander.
Sean, it's time. We need to talk about dogs, and in particular, luxury brand Dolce & Gabbana introducing a new fragrance. It is a fragrance for canines, and it is a bargain, apparently, at about $170 a bottle.
According to Dolce & Gabbana's website, the alcohol-free fragrance, specifically for dogs, contains, let me quote, the cocooning and warm notes of ylang, the clean and enveloping touch of musk, and the woody, creamy undertones of sandalwood. End quote.
You know what, Sean? It feels like that's overkill, right? I'm just thinking.
You reckon?
If you were bringing out dog perfumes, what about the scent of bones? The scent of scared cats? The scent of other dogs' butts? Like, surely.
You've gone off early. You haven't even listened to the story. You need to, you've gone off too early.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
The scent of butts. According to the New York Times, the perfume has been certified by an organisation called the Safe Pet Cosmetics, which is an independent veterinary organisation in Italy, of course. There is a slight problem, according to critics. Dogs rely heavily on smell to navigate the world, which, of course, is filled with subtle odour cues from other dogs, the butts, humans, food, potential dangers, stuff like that. Alter that, and there could be all sorts of social issues and confusion among dogs around the world. There are a few dog perfumes around. Hound, that's Hownd, a dog food and grooming company, makes peach bum natural perfume for lady dogs.
So for lady dogs?
Yes, for lady dogs. Don't go any further there, Michael. Another organisation, Peanut and Pickle, has a selection of fragrances such as coconut, sea salt, peppermint, and grapefruit. In fact, Queen Elizabeth II, who of course is known for her corgis, created her own dog perfume in 2022. So let's not laugh about it, Michael. Let's take it a little bit more seriously. Dolce & Gabbana, good luck with your new fragrance for dogs.
It feels like they're overcomplicating things.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that is one heck of a story, Sean, and quite a way to finish the show, actually. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. You are speaking today with Nehemiah Richardson, CEO of Pengana Credit, a supporter of this podcast.
All about private credit and investing in private credit overseas, so global private credit, and why it's different to investing in private credit in Australia. Interesting interview, very interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. It is up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Thursday, the 8th of August, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.